revealed the amazing transformation of a sleepy igloo into a heartwarming dreamland for kids. In the chilling grip of winter, hope ignited like a spark in Nome, Alaska, a small town trapped under layers of snow and struggle. Sarah, a humble teacher and lifelong resident, stood before the crumbling igloo that housed their school, a faded memory of vibrant dreams. Each brick of ice and snow held thousands of untold stories, but today would become the catalyst for a heartwarming transformation. This was no ordinary school day. Today, Sarah would fight with everything she had for her children as futures. The wind howled outside, echoing her determination. She wasted no time, heart racing, proposal in hand. Her vision spilled forth, a place bursting with color, where children could lose themselves in books stacked high beside a cozy nook, art supplies laying out like treasures waiting to be discovered. But would the town, beaten down by hardship, see her dreams as their dreams too? As she walked through the frost-bitten streets, she felt the weight of doubt hanging in the air. Neighbors shuffled about, hushed like the snowfall settling on their rooftops. Many bore scars of disappointment that ran deep. Sarah could feel their hesitation, that stubborn darkness settling over their spirits. She knew she had to rally them. And just as the ocean rises with a storm, word spread like wildfire about an educational grant. A feeling of excitement buzzed, but with it came the crackling friction of division. At the community meeting, voices rose and fell like the tide. Who deserved the grant? Who would be first in line? Old biases bubbled up like steam from a kettle, drowning out the possibility of unity. Sarah felt her heart sink as faces showed their uncertainty. Could she rise above their fears? Summer barbecues her grandfather used to host danced in her mind, people laughing, sharing. She wished to rekindle that spirit of togetherness, yet her heart ached. As the meeting became a battleground, she saw one small face in the sea of skepticism. A child's hand shot up, eyes bright with trust and hope. Would this one innocent joy be enough to break through? Swallowing hard, she rose. The wind rattled the windows as if it too was anxious for her words. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The moment's tension thickened, yet her heart raced as she shared her own story, growing up in Nome, driven by her grandfather's dreams. She spoke of resilience and the power of coming together as one community. With each word, she felt that spark of hope catching flame. Could they feel it too? Could they rally around the dreams of their children? As she paused, the bitter winter wind surged outside, but within those walls, warmth began to pulse because in this moment, it was about them, their future, and the beloved community that Sarah longed to embrace once more. Would this be the turning point they all needed? The chatter in the room cascaded into silence, eyes now focused on Sarah as she took a deep breath. It was as if time stopped in that frozen moment, each face reflecting a flicker of curiosity that hadn't been there before. She felt a rush of warmth push through her, like the first rays of sun peeking over a snow-laden horizon. I believe in our kids, she said, voice steady yet filled with emotion. They deserve more than this icy shell of a building. We can build something beautiful, something that represents who we are as a community. We can pave paths for our children, so their laughter fills these halls. We owe it to them. A ripple of whispers stirred the audience. Some faces softened, while others hardened, wrestling with skepticism. An elderly man stood, trembling slightly, leaning on his cane. What if we don't have the resources? What if we fail again? His voice trembled like the wind outside, carrying the weight of frustration and defeat. The question hung in the air, heavy with doubt. But Sarah didn't falter, she met his gaze directly. What if we do? Her heart raced at the sincerity pouring from her. What if we trust each other? Think of the joy of hearing children read aloud or seeing them create masterpieces with their hands. Isn't that worth fighting for? Loudest of all was the heart of a child, one so innocent and pure, breaking through the storm of discontent. I want to learn. Please, can we have a place to play and read? The young girl's eyes sparkled with hope, and just like that, the room shifted. Families, once divided, began sharing glances of recognition, a unity tethered by shared dreams. One mother, hesitantly joining the conversation, stood gripped in emotion. I remember my own childhood here, how we thrived in the warmth of our community. We can't let that slip away. We need to be in this together. Her voice rose, causing heads to nod and hands to clap. Behind her, Sarah felt breath catch in her throat, pride swelling. She saw a flicker of something greater, a community's spirit reigniting into a flame. She could feel the barriers of apathy beginning to melt, warmth spilling over cold, harsh views. This was it, the seed of change. As they debated, plans began to stir. Ideas floated about like snowflakes on the breeze, brightening the room with fervor. A local carpenter spoke up, I could donate my time to help with the renovations. Gasps of surprise bounced around the room, hope blossomed with every suggestion thrown into the air. But as new ideas sparked and momentum built, something gnawed at the back of Sarah's mind. What if they couldn't raise enough funds? What if some people still held on to their fears, pulling them back into the shadows? Just when she thought she'd gathered the courage to ask for a commitment, a loud crack of thunder echoed outside, shaking the windows again. The storm outside felt like a metaphor, a reminder that change never came without fear and disquiet. As the meeting pushed into a collective consensus, a palpable sense of solidarity began to anchor the room. Conversations shifted from skepticism to possibility, smiles replacing frowns. But just as hope blossomed, a shadow lurked, causing Sarah's heart to tighten. What hidden secrets could still reach out to stop their dreams from taking flight? The room hung expectantly on the verge of transformation, like the silence before the first snow falls, full of promise yet cloaked in uncertainty. What challenges awaited that might shatter their fragile unity? With every heartbeat, the stakes had never felt higher. Where would they find the courage to carry this momentum forward? As the storm rumbled on, a sense of urgency filled the room. Sarah took a moment to meet the gaze of each person, her eyes dancing with sincerity and resolve. The energy was palpable, like a current sparking between them. And just when she thought they might rally together, the door creaked open, cutting through the moment like a knife. In walked Mark, the town's treasurer, his brows knitted in concern. He had been a rock for the community, but today he looked far from the steadfast figure they all admired. Sorry to interrupt, he said, glancing at the sea of expectant faces, but we need to talk finances. A collective sigh swept through the room, the wind gusting outside echoing their dismay. Mark stepped further in, clearly torn. Listen, as much as I want to support this, he hesitated, glancing at the old man clutching his cane, then at the bright-eyed child who had spoken the loudest earlier, we're already in debt. I can't imagine how we're going to scrape together funds for renovations." Sarah felt her heart plummet, but she quickly caught herself. "Mark, we're not just looking for funds. We're looking for a community, a team. Together, we can find ways to raise money. If we unite, it's not just about dollars and cents, it's about hope." His shoulders relaxed a little, but doubt still loomed in his eyes. "I want to believe that, I do. But funding requires more than hope. It requires a plan, and we need to outline how we'll get there." Several voices chimed in, rallying around her words. "We could set up a fundraiser," suggested a father in the crowd. "What if we hold a community picnic? We can charge a small entry fee and have local businesses sponsor booths." "Yes. And we can involve the kids," piped up a mother. "Let them create art to sell. Give them pride in their work, something tangible we can share." Sarah felt the spirit of cooperation swell again, invigorated by their ideas. "And we could ask local businesses to donate a portion of their sales," she added, a spark of excitement in her voice. The energy shifted once more, momentum igniting like kindling in a fireplace. The crowd began brainstorming, chatter filling the space as summer plans swirled in the air. Sarah stood back, watching as ideas soared, love and unity knitting a bond among the townspeople. The children grinned, swept up in the excitement, their laughter ringing like tiny bells. But amidst the rising tide of hope, a deeper concern began to gnaw at Sarah. Was this all just a surface-level remedy? Would these fundraisers truly be enough? With each suggestion floating forth, her worry deepened that it would still not quell the distressing shadow. She sensed the fear of whether their ambitions would crumble like brittle leaves. As the crowd buzzed on, Sarah slipped out of the room for a moment, stepping outside into the storm. The rain pelted her skin, fierce and overwhelming. It mirrored her inner turmoil. The external noise echoed her internal doubts. What if they didn't rally enough support? What if their dreams unraveled in front of their very eyes? A flash of lightning illuminated her thoughts like a sudden realization. This wasn't just about the building, it was about them. It was about community, love, resilience, and commitment. With renewed determination, she stepped back inside, the door swinging wide like new possibilities. "Let us do this together," she declared, her voice resonant, calling them back from individual doubts. "Let us show this community what we can really be." Just as enthusiasm washed over the crowd again, a different sound broke through the unmistakable sharp creak of the floorboard. Something felt off, like a whisper hinting at unraveling tensions still lurking just beneath the surface. What hidden truths awaited discovery that could disrupt their newfound unity? Would the storm outside drown out their voices, or would they find the strength to weather it together? As the murmurs of excitement faded, Sarah's heart skipped. The crowd felt alive with ideas and possibility, yet there was an unsettling weight pulling at her. She focused on Mark, whose face was a blend of skepticism and hope, the creased worry lines deepening with each passing moment. The slick shadows in the corners of the room started to stretch, as if echoing the tension in the air. What was that sound? Someone whispered, just loud enough for others to hear. Heads turned, eyes darted toward the source of the creak. The old building seemed to groan with age, or was it foreboding? Mark raised an eyebrow, and Sarah felt her pulse quicken. "I don't know, but we need to keep our spirits high," she said, forcing a confident smile. "Let us focus on what we can do. We're stronger together." Before she could finish, a loud crash reverberated from the back of the room. A mixture of gasps and shouts erupted. Paper fluttered like startled birds as a shelf toppled over, sending notebooks and pens scattering across the wooden floor. In the chaos, a small figure darted out from behind a curtain, a wide-eyed boy clutching a dusty book. "I found this!" he exclaimed, breathless, as everyone turned to look. Hands trembled slightly, and Sarah's heart raced. What could this boy possibly have uncovered? As he held the book high, pages flapping in the wind from the nearby open window, it hit her. "Is that the town's old history journal?" she asked, stepping closer. A collective murmur rippled through the crowd as the boy nodded vigorously, excitement illuminating his expression. "Yeah. I saw it back there. I think it talks about our town's past like the time we saved the old bridge," he said, flipping through brittle pages. "There are stories about how everyone came together, how we fixed everything when it fell apart." Sarah inhaled sharply. Could this journal hold a key? Not just to memories, but to the very essence of what unity meant? Mark, drawn in by curiosity, moved closer too. "Those stories could inspire us," he said thoughtfully, glancing at Sarah. "We need to remember why our community matters, especially right now." The boy turned a page, revealing faded photographs of smiling faces, grandparents, children, visionaries who once fought against the odds. "Look! This shows how they raised money to save the fountain." He pointed at an image of a colorful fair, people laughing and dancing under strings of lights. Sarah felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. "What if we revisit some of these ideas?" she suggested, her voice gathering strength. "We can create a community fair just like they did. I bet we could even reenact those old events," shouted another voice from the back, filled with enthusiasm. "Costumes, games, fun." Eager ideas exploded like fireworks, filling the room with renewed vigor. But as laughter and discussions bounced off the walls, Sarah couldn't shake her earlier doubts. What if those stories were just echoes of a past that couldn't be revitalized? She pushed the thought aside, her heart swelling with a sense of possibility. Then, just as the energy peaked, she felt a cold draft slip through the cracks, chilling her to the bone. In the midst of joyous chatter, an unsettling silence fell momentarily, the air charged with whispers of the storm outside. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the town hall. Was the storm a warning, or did it amplify the fragile bond they were trying to forge? "Does anyone else feel that?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mark met her gaze, understanding dawning in his eyes. "The past can guide us, but this storm, it feels like a test." The crowd was suddenly quiet, the thrill of their plans overshadowed by an unshakable uncertainty. The dark clouds continued to rumble, echoing within them. What lay ahead was unclear. Would they emerge from this storm as the community they hoped to be, or would the weight of the past tear them apart once more? The tension hung thick in the air, leaving them wrestling with the ghosts of history and the throes of the present. The silence stretched like a taut string, and Sarah could hear the thumping of her own heart. It mirrored the unsettled feelings rippling through the crowd. The old wooden beams creaked, almost echoing their fear. Mark turned to the boy holding the book, his eyes sharp and filled with determination. "What else is in there?" he asked, motioning to the pages flapping in the boy's hands. "Can we find anything to help us?" The boy, a spark of courage igniting in his small frame, beamed. "Of course. There are stories here. Maybe some will spark new ideas." He eagerly flipped back a few pages, scanning the unfamiliar handwriting. There's this one about a harvest festival. They had everything: games, contests, and food. Everyone came together. Look! The boy pointed to an illustration depicting a communal feast, long tables overflowing with colorful dishes, people smiling and basking in each other's company. Sarah felt a warmth seep through her, a moment of nostalgia washing over her. Imagine if we could bring that sense of community back, she said, gesturing around the room. We could connect history to our present. We could remind everyone how working together felt, how good it is. Mark nodded, enthusiasm breaking through the clouding doubt. Yes. We could hold it right here, at the town hall. Transform this place. Make it vibrant again. The crowd began to stir with growing energy, people nodding, exchanging glances filled with new hope. Someone shouted, "What if we also honor the past? Each game could represent a story." Yeah. And we could invite everyone, the kids, the grandparents. Another voice chanted from the back, a palpable excitement unfolding. But just as Sarah started to feel the weight of possibilities lift, an unexpected howl of wind whipped through, rattling the windows. The quiet storm outside suddenly roared, a violent reminder of the unpredictability lurking beyond the old walls. Look! Someone pointed, eyes wide, as the lights flickered again, unsure of their place amid the brewing chaos. A moment of anxiety hung in the air. Sarah caught Mark's eye, and the question in his gaze settled deep inside her. Do we really want to risk this? She dared to ask, her voice trembling but resolute. What if it's too late? What if the storm takes everything before we even begin? We need to be realistic. We could fail. Or we could succeed. Mark threw back defiantly, but even he seemed shaken by a growing fissure of doubt creeping into their resolve. Every storm ends. It's what we do that counts after. The crowd was divided, exchanging glances laden with concern and unspoken fear. The enthusiasm felt like a fragile bubble, and Sarah feared that the storm, both outside and within, might burst it. I just want to know if we're ready to face what is ahead. She breathed deeply, trying to stand strong amidst swirling emotions and opinions. This is more than just an event. It's about reviving our spirit. Before anyone could answer, the boy raised his voice, exuding an innocence that cut through the tension. I want to help. We can make it fun. If we come together, maybe it will be amazing. His words hung in the room, a simple truth that echoed louder than the howling wind. It reminded Sarah of the strength in vulnerability, an idea that slowly gathered the fragmented emotions. Slowly, murmurs of agreement spread through the crowd. They wanted to try. They wanted to reclaim their spirit, to face whatever storm lay ahead. Mark stepped closer to Sarah, his voice low but firm. So, what do you think? Are we going to fight this storm, together? Sarah looked around at the faces glowing with tentative hope, each one a reflection of her own desire to uplift a thought that took root and blossomed within her. Together, she echoed, a steady resolve settling. But as the dark clouds rumbled hungrily outside, one thought gnawed at the edges of her mind. What if facing the storm meant confronting not only the winds outside but the fears they held inside? With that uncertainty looming, a bolt of lightning lit up the room, leaving them squinting, their future hanging by a thread, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that deeper revelations awaited them. Would unity truly be their strongest shield? Mark's voice clipped through the air, piercing the electricity of their surroundings. Let us do it. If we want to bring hope back to our town, we need to start somewhere. He turned to the boy, whose eyes sparkled with excitement and enthusiasm. You're right, the boy chirped, clenching the book in two small hands. Everyone can help choose what games to play, and we can decorate everything. Like a festival. The biggest one ever. The vision danced before them, a vibrant tapestry of laughter, colors, and joy woven together by community spirit. But even as the idea hung enticingly in the air, Sarah felt a twinge of hesitation deep inside. The storm outside roared louder, and the shadows in the room seemed to stretch ominously. "What if we can't handle whatever comes our way?" she said quietly, fear creeping back into her voice. The familiar nagging doubt slipped back, a whisper in her ear that threatened to unravel their newfound determination. Mark shot her a sidelong glance, his jaw set in a firm line. "What if we can't? We won't know until we try. Ignore the storm for a minute, let us focus on what we can build." "Right." The boy piped up again. "Let us start planning. We can gather supplies from everyone's houses. I can help with the decorations." The flickering lights cast shadows that danced along the walls, reflecting the uncertainty and hope in the room. People began to stand, their faces igniting with a spark of purpose. One by one, they started discussing ideas, drawing from the stories within the dusty pages. Sarah took a breath to steady herself. "Okay. We need roles. Who can help with food? We need someone to set up games, music." Hands began to rise, eager to volunteer. There was something magical about witnessing the transformation of doubt into boldness. The sounds of voices blending together filled the hall like the soft rays of morning light piercing through storm clouds. "Can I help make lemonade? It's my mom's recipe," shouted a girl from the back. "I have decorations at home. Lots of ribbons." Another voice chimed in. The safety of the old hall felt like a sacred space, as if their shared dreams wrapped around them like a warm embrace. A surge of determination pulsed through Sarah, she could see their ideas taking shape beneath the light of hope glimmering in their eyes. But outside, the storm intensified. Another crack of thunder reverberated through the building, and Sarah's heart raced. "Are we really that ready?" The question hung in the air like a weight threatening to break the fervent energy building among them. The boy's face lit up at her concern, his sincerity dissolving her reservations. "We have each other. If we work together, it'll be great. Just like the story. Just like the story." The truth knotted in her stomach, mingled with hope. Could a rush of memories revive their spirits? Were they truly ready to carve a path through the storm together? The excitement continued to build until Mark spoke brightly once again, the storm momentarily forgotten. "All right, everyone. Let us map this out. We'll create something special that honors our past and gives life to our future." They set to work, voices overlapping as ideas flew, laughter blended with urgency, the energy felt electric. Sarah couldn't help but smile, even amidst her swirling thoughts. Could this festival truly heal their wounds, help them face the tumult ahead? What if darker fears loomed larger than they realized, waiting to spill forth when the storm finally broke? Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging them into shadows. Gasps rippled through the crowd, distilling the excitement into a tense quiet. "Stay together," Mark called, his voice strong, anchoring them as the storm whipped violently outside. But in that darkness, a flicker of a candle caught Sarah's attention. She could feel the heat from within, the spark of hope dancing defiantly against the black. And just as it did, there came a distant sound, a voice crying out from outside, sharp and urgent amid the cacophony of thunder. "Help me! In that moment, Sarah's heart plummeted. What lay outside there? Haven? What would they find if they ventured into the tempest? As they gathered their courage to face whatever storm awaited, the question loomed larger than ever. How far were they willing to go together? The room felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with tension and fear. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. The dim flicker of that candle was the only light as shadows loomed larger, whispering possibilities that sent shivers down her spine. The urgency in that voice outside, raw and afraid, wrapped around her like a chilling wind. Is it safe? Someone murmured, panic creeping into their tone. Mark took a step forward, his silhouette sturdy against the trembling light. We can't leave them out there. We have to check. That decision echoed in the hearts of everyone present. Despite the storm that raged outside, a collective courage began to build. Sarah felt it too, the stir of resolve in her gut. There was no backing down now. We stick together, she declared, her voice stronger than she felt. Right. The boy from before nodded vigorously. We can help whoever it is. Together. With that, the whispers transformed into determined murmurs as everyone moved toward the doors. The darkness was suffocating, but they could hear each other's soft breaths and steady beats of hearts in unison. Everyone grab a candle, Mark instructed, his eyes scanning the crowd. We'll light the way. Hands scrambled to find light in the dark, flickers illuminating fearful faces. And just like that, the shadows recoiled in defeat. The glimmering light made the storm outside seem somewhat distant, less menacing, as their small troop steadied itself. We can do this, Sarah said to herself as she picked up a candle. Confidence flowed into her veins as she caught sight of the determined faces around her. They were more than a community, they were a family knitted together by shared struggles. With a steadying breath, Mark pushed the heavy doors open, and the tempest roared at them. The winds howled like wild animals, but the small flame in their hands flickered defiantly against the chaos outside. Stay close, he shouted, leading them into the stormy gloom. The rain fell in sheets, soaking immediately through their clothes. With wide-eyed wonder and fear, they moved as one unit against nature's fury. When they reached the edge of the old hall, a figure stumbled into their line of sight, barely visible through the curtain of rain. Help me! The voice cried again, breaking through the din. It was an older woman, her frail form huddled, shivering against the onslaught. Sarah's heart lurched. She recognized her Mrs. Collins, the sweet lady who always brought cookies to the bake sales. Mrs. Collins! Sarah called out, pushing forward, aware that her footsteps drew others behind her. In a rush, they formed a line, extending their hands as they guided her back toward the safety of the hall. Hope surged within her. They were not just saving one person but restoring a part of their community, piece by piece. The fears that had clung to Sarah began to lift, replaced by adrenaline and purpose. Thank you, thank you. Mrs. Collins gasped, eyes wide with astonishment. She looked at the small group gathered around her, the flickering candles and determined faces reflecting back the warmth of their hearts. Just then, another sound broke through. A loud crash filled the air. An old tree had succumbed to the storm, falling just beyond the entrance of the hall, blocking their path back in. Panic surged once more. We can't go back, someone shouted, fear leaking into their voices. Wait! Mark held up his hand, steadying the group. We can find another way. The side door. Follow me. They turned, but Sarah looked back at Mrs. Collins, who was wrapped in fear and uncertainty. "We can't leave her," they whispered, desperation creeping back as they felt the storm's rage escalate. As they pivoted back toward the door, Sarah couldn't shake the growing realization that they were facing more than weather. It was a test of what their community could endure, what they could survive together. As they maneuvered through the rain, only one thought resonated: how far would they go to protect one another? Just then, a bright flash of lightning illuminated the chaos, revealing not just the path ahead but the hidden strength within each of them. Where would this journey lead them next? Water poured down from the sky as they hurried through the rain, hearts pounding like the thunder that rumbled around them. The world felt chaotic, but in that moment, it was the faces of those around her that brought clarity to Sarah. They were together, and together they could face anything. Mark led the way toward the side of the old hall, the light from their candles trembling with each gust of wind. The rain slapped against their skin, cold and biting, but their resolve burned hot. Each step felt like a lifeline, knit tighter with hope and love. "Mrs. Collins, are you okay?" Sarah shouted over the roaring winds, glancing back to check on the elderly woman. She was soaked through, her hair clinging to her face, but there was a spark in her tired eyes. "I'm all right, dear," Mrs. Collins replied, her voice strained but steady. "Let us keep moving." Just as they reached the side of the hall, another loud crack echoed through the air, and they all jumped, turning their heads in unison. The sight took their breath away. The huge tree that had fallen was now a barrier, leaning against the edge of the building, brushing against the window. The candlelight flickered against the dark shapes, adding to the sense of urgency. "Help me, someone!" A cry suddenly rang out from under the leaves. Without a second thought, Sarah darted toward the source, her heart racing. Another figure sat huddled, trapped beneath a thick branch that had snapped off. A younger boy, no older than 10, looked up at her with wide eyes, filled with fear. "Stay calm, we're here," she called out, quickly assessing the situation. The others gathered around her, candles held high as they illuminated the boy, their glowing beacons in the storm. Mark immediately joined Sarah, but he knelt by the boy and didn't hesitate. "What is your name?" he asked, attempting to keep the boy calm. "Toby," the boy whimpered, tiny hands trembling. I was running, and I got caught." Sarah glanced at the group. "We need to lift the branch. Everyone, on 3. Together, they stacked their strengths, reaching for the branch, which felt heavier than it looked. Mark's voice echoed 1, 2, 3. They heaved with a collective grunt, and, with a jolt, the branch shifted just enough for Toby to wriggle out. Sarah dropped to her knees as soon as he was free, pulling him into her embrace, feeling the shiver of his tiny body against her. "You're safe now, you're okay," she whispered, fighting back tears. She wanted to comfort him, to wrap him in warmth and reassurance. The group felt the surge of triumph radiate through them like the candlelight. Another life saved, another heart restored. "Now what?" someone asked, looking anxiously at Mark as the storm howled. Mark's brow furrowed as he scanned the area. "We need to find higher ground. There's a hill behind the hall, it might be safer. We can shelter there until the storm passes." The urgency of Mark's words rippled through the group, reigniting the flame of determination in their hearts. "Let us go!" Sarah shouted, leading the way, the candles held tight in their hands like the promise of hope. They moved through the wild rain, forming a small procession marching against adversity. Heartbeats synced, breaths shared like an intimate promise. The way forward was uncertain, but together they were stronger. As they reached the hill's crest, lightning flashed again, this time illuminating something in the distance. A glimmer caught her eye, and the tension melted away momentarily. It was the old lookout tower, a remnant from happier days, now a silhouette against the raging storm. "Do you see that?" Sarah exclaimed, pointing. "Yeah," Mark replied, awe in his voice. "We could find shelter there." Hope surged again like a rush of wind filling her sails. Together, they could brave anything. But would they make it there in time? The storm roared louder, urgency hanging thick in the air as they turned toward the tower. Sarah grasped her candle tighter as they took the first step toward the unknown, fueled by the strength they found in one another. What awaited them at the tower? Would each flicker of hope burn strong enough to guide them through this tempest? As they raced toward the tower, raindrops lashed at their faces like tiny daggers. The wind howled, a relentless reminder that time was slipping away. Sarah could feel the weight of Toby's small frame as he clung tightly to her, his breath shaky but filled with the courage he drew from their company. "Keep moving," Mark called, his voice a beacon in the storm, pushing them forward. They held their candles high, fragile flames flickering defiantly against the encroaching darkness. Each step felt monumental, a battle against not just the storm but the fear that threatened to creep in. When they finally reached the tower's base, Mark pushed the heavy door open, a loud creak slicing through the tumult outside. Cold, damp air rushed out to greet them, but it was better than the relentless rain. They piled in, hearts racing, faces streaked with moisture. Inside, the ground was covered with debris, dusty old wood and scattered leaves, remnants of past storms. The smell of dampness clung to the walls, but it felt like a sanctuary nonetheless. Sarah turned back toward the group, catching their eyes. She could see the determination there. They had made it, at least for now. "Let's get a fire going," Mark suggested, peering into the corner where a rusty grate sat. "We need some warmth. It'll lift our spirits." The group rallied together. Some scrounged for wood while others formed a circle around Tom, the oldest among them, who offered to light the flame. "Do you really think we'll be okay?" Toby whispered to Sarah, his little face pale with worry, even in the glow of the candles. "Absolutely," Sarah said, brushing a hand through his hair. "You're safe now, and so is everyone else. We're all together." It was a promise she believed in her heart. A flicker of orange soon danced in the grate as Tom worked his magic. The fire crackled to life, slowly eating away at the wood, sending warmth rushing through the room. The flickering shadows created a dance on the stone walls, and Sarah felt her spirits lift. "See? Told you," she said, nudging Toby's shoulder. "We're like a family," Mrs. Collins chimed in, her voice full of warmth. "Just like those little flames, we shine brighter together." A small pocket of laughter erupted among them, a much-needed balm against the storm outside. In that moment, reality faded, and all their struggles melted away. Surrounded by people they had only recently met, it felt more like a reunion than a rescue mission. But as they settled in, the wind outside changed. A sudden roar pierced through the door, and panic flared up as they regrouped, faces tight with concern. "Toby, stay close!" Sarah shouted, scanning the darkness outside. Her heart was thundering not from rain or wind, but from the sudden chill of fear. "What was that?" Mark asked, eyes flashing as he stared into the murky depths beyond the threshold. I don't know," Sarah stammered. A sense of dread coiled tightly in her stomach. It sounded different. The atmosphere thickened. As the group fell silent, the sounds of the storm transformed, morphing into something darker, more menacing. The feeling in the air shifted, pressing down on them like a heavy blanket. They stood huddled, eyes darting toward the door, waiting for whatever was to come next. Then, amid the storm-drenched chaos, another sound intertwined with the howl of the wind. A faint whisper, barely audible, but it was unmistakable. Someone or something was out there. Did you hear that? Toby's voice quivered, a tremor of realization mixed with the heartbeat of the storm. Yeah, I heard it, Mark answered, heart pounding, eyes widening. We need to check it out. Driven by adrenaline and dread, they formed a line, moving cautiously toward the doorway. What awaited them outside? Would it be a new danger or perhaps the next piece of hope they so desperately craved? The storm had already revealed their strength, but now it threatened to unveil something much more haunting. As they stepped back into the raging storm, the wind screamed around them, but the warmth from the fire lingered, a precious reminder of the life they had just built within the tower's crumbling walls. Sarah clutched Toby's small hand tightly, her heart racing in her chest. The feeling of anxiety coiled deep inside her, battling against the flicker of hope she had stoked in the hearts of her fellow townsfolk. Stay close to the light, she whispered, reminding herself as much as the boy beside her. The wind howled louder, and they braced themselves against the downpour, pushing against the gusts that threatened to swallow them whole. Mark led the way, stepping gingerly across the threshold into the dim chaos beyond. The storm continued its relentless assault, yet there was an undercurrent of energy buzzing within the group. Courage and determination flourished in a space brimming with love and hope. They were not alone anymore. I think it came from over there. Mark waved his arm, indicating the glimmer of something moving in the distance, just beyond the edge of the light. The shadow flickered, teasing at the edges of their reality. Come on! Someone urged, nudging forward with renewed strength. The collective heartbeat of their little troop rose in unison, fueled by the promise of unity. They pushed forward, moving like a tightly knit fabric toward whatever awaited them. With every step, Sarah felt the weight of the storm lessening, not merely from the chaotic winds but in her heart. They were here together. Stories were unfolding between them, threads weaving memories that throbbing with the warmth of shared humanity. As they approached the shape, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall silhouette, drenched and shaky. The air stilled, and the room fell silent. Who's there? Mark shouted, his voice echoing in the storm. I need help. The voice was deep and strained, resonating with urgency. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. The figure stumbled closer, revealing the worn features of Leonard, the beloved town mechanic, whose kindness was known throughout Nome. Leonard! Sarah gasped, stepping forward. His eyes glistened with fear, and he was soaked through to the bone, clenching his forearm where a thick branch had pressed him against the ground. I was on my way to the hall when that tree fell, he explained, panting heavily. It tangled me up. I didn't think I'd make it. Let's get you inside. Mark shouted, bracing Leonard upright. The community moved as one cohesive unit, each shoulder touching and lifting him as they guided him toward the shelter of the tower. Inside, the candlelight flickered brighter as voices merged into a chorus of concern. You'll be okay, Sarah said softly as she helped Leonard to a makeshift seat on an old crate. We've got you. The fire crackled, its warm embrace wrapping around them as they inspected Leonard's injury. The townspeople gathered, whispering words of encouragement. With each offering of support, warmth flowed through the room. Mark took charge, rummaging through their supplies to find clean cloth. "We have to clean the wound," he said, looking at Sarah as someone who understood the gravity of the situation. "Can you gather more light? We need to see clearly." With his words, a flicker of inspiration sparked within Sarah. She grabbed more candles, igniting a flame within her spirit as much as the wax itself. The warmth enveloped Leonard like a soothing balm. "We've all faced storms tonight," Sarah declared, her voice unwavering, "but together, we can heal from the chaos. Just keep breathing, Leonard." As she spoke, she could feel the tide turning. The storm outside raged on, but the inner storm began to settle. Leaning closer to Leonard, Sarah saw determination in his weary eyes. "It's not just about surviving the storm, it's about what we can build afterward." Around her, smiles emerged, feelings of fear were fading, replaced with quiet strength, camaraderie, and purpose. They were transforming together not just as individuals, but as a unit forged in the fires of adversity. I can't believe we came together during this," Mrs. Collins murmured, her voice trembling with joy as she wiped tears from her cheeks. "It's beautiful to see us all fighting for one another." As Leonard's wound was cared for, the community bonded even tighter. "We're stronger together," Mark announced, lifting the renewed spirit with his raw sincerity. "Every one of us matters. We're going to get through this, but we have to make it back." A surge of determination fired through the room, and with that momentum, they instinctively turned their focus back to the raging storm. How would they make it back? "Let us take turns guarding the door," Sarah suggested, her eyes sparkling with strength. "Together, we navigate the storm as we did before. It's about facing our fears, hand in hand. We can do it." Every word echoed, forging their path forward. Sarah felt the pulses of unity ripple around her, the flickering flames no longer mere candles, but beacons of hope for her loved ones. With their spirits ignited, they turned their gaze toward one another, a renewed camaraderie formed. They joined hands, their connection deeply rooted in shared dreams and community. "On my mark," Mark called, and they readied themselves against the storm once more. 3, 2, 1. They shouted, their voices intertwining with the chaos outside as they surged through the door together. Each footfall felt like a heartbeat. They moved as one, lights held high, courage at the core of their being. With every courageous step, the wind met them not as a foe but as a fierce invitation into life beyond the storm. "Together," echoed through the night as they breached the threshold of the old hall. The storm held around them like a protective cloak, but within, they braced for the unknown, ready to reclaim their dreams for the healing journey ahead. Resilient, as one. That was their promise. And as the first rays of dawn began peeking through the clouds, they knew a brighter tomorrow lay just ahead. It was time to chase those dreams and ignite a heartwarming transformation that would forever change their community. Now it was their turn to rise above, anchored in love, laughter, and unity. And the moment of transformation bloomed, vibrant, their dreams no longer an icy shell, but a warm, welcoming dreamland where hope flourished, ready to embrace generations to come. As they stood together amidst a world waking afresh, Sarah felt her heart swell with the realization, storms may come and go, but the bonds of community built within love would always prove stronger. This was only the beginning. Together, they would thrive. And in that wondrous realization, filled with the vibrancy of life, they cherished every heartbeat, every dream, forged in storms yet illuminated by light. This is your moment. Don't forget to subscribe immediately to the channel and dive deeper into these exclusive stories of transformation. Hit that like button now to fuel the algorithm. Your support matters. We'd love to hear from you, so comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this heartwarming journey. And act fast, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the strength of community. You need to spread the word. Join us as we ignite the flames of hope together. Don't wait not even one more second. Your support is essential, and only true fans understand the importance of lifting each other up.